So our next panel is going to be the techie panel, how businesses are bridging the physical and digital world to deliver new value tips and techniques. And on that, moderating that panel is Miss Telly Ono out of St. Kitts and out of Nevis via via St. Vincent, via Nigeria, via Globe, right? Telly, are you around?
I'm right here.
You're right there.
I
want to introduce Telly. She has a very extensive bio, but I'm just gonna very quickly tell you that she's the co-founder of Beyond Capital Markets. She's a managing partner of ProHas Labs. She's a serial entrepreneur, which is true, which is very true, and a financial innovator, and has been at the forefront of digital finance and alternative investments with over 20 years experience as digital economist, educator, and financial transformation practitioner. She is an international speaker. She has co-authored 2 books, the InsurTech book and the Wealth Tech book. She is a digital financial market infrastructure and alternative finance advocate, finance innovator, and ecosystem enabler. So Telly, with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to you so you can take your panel away. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brandon. Greetings, everyone. I see that there are a few people I know in the group and others that are joining, so I want to welcome you. It's always a pleasure to participate in the Caribbean Center of Excellence for Sustainable Livelihoods events. I've known Dr. Brandon for quite a while now, and similar to Dr. John, she is definitely a mentor to me. And I very look up to her, and I really, really love how this event is actually shaping up. So without further ado, I'd want to introduce my panel. So our panel is quite interesting because on the one hand, we're very, very diverse. So diversity is going to be one of those thematics I will be talking about. We're also quite techy, as Dr. Brandon had already intimated. And we have been already talking about how the influence of digital has now literally propelled us to kind of recreate and reimagine. So you can't do anything without digital. And unfortunately, there is a digital divide that we have. The panel will also have discussions on the whole entrepreneurship ecosystem, and not just entrepreneurship, but we'll also look at thematics on innovation and also on how we can facilitate, how the ecosystem and infrastructure for the ecosystem can facilitate and support businesses create new value systems. So we know the transition is painful. We don't necessarily have to repeat issues of COVID and whatever. We're tired of COVID, we've heard about it. But the whole thing is we have to kind of pivot. So without further ado, I would like to, I'm just pretty much
I think Telly has frozen. It's, let me see. Let me go back into where I have control and I can see. I think Telly has frozen. So what I'm going to try to do until she gets back is jump in and take the panel away. So we have on our panel, Miss Betty Foster, who is CEO of IPS. Are you back, Telly?
Oh, I left. I didn't realize I left.
You left?
The internet connectivity with the flows and one of you guys in here better develop a sustainable solution for connectivity. Thank you. So yes, I was asking Ahmed LaRousse to kind of share his, put on his screen and just say a quick hello.
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Hey, Ahmed.
Hi,
Welcome.
Ahmed. Okay, nice to put a face to the name. All right, so let me just give you a little overview on Ahmed. Ahmed is an author and social innovator. He's also an entrepreneur and strategic creative communicator, and his focus also is on marketing. He has served as a consultant across the globe to many public and private um, sector businesses, including assisting in the commercialization of businesses, startups, helping governments, and then, of course, civil society. One thing that's very interesting about Ahmed is Ahmed has a very niche focus on AI, artificial intelligence. So as we start discussing on our panel, we'll be talking and introducing new concepts called fourth revolution technologies. And out of fourth revolution technologies, we'll be talking about artificial intelligence. As you know, as we start to automate things, we're creating so much data that we ourselves cannot go through the data as fast as a computer will. So they're creating what we call algorithms that can then process data in a very rapid way. And in automating that data, there are some attendant issues that may come up that could cause further displacement. So Ahmed, he works in looking at inclusive algorithm. He's the founder of Inclusive Algorithm, and his focus is to bring about more inclusivity in the world of AI. He's also the co-founder of and author of 180 Amsterdammers, celebrating Amsterdam's rich culture. As you noticed from the presentation before, when people are looking at village tourism, this is a very unique model that one could learn from. So without further ado, he has so many other accolades, but I would let that come out in our conversation. So my next speaker, we're coming all the way back to the Eastern Caribbean, but now we're going to the French Eastern Caribbean. Betty Faust. Betty Faust hails from Guadeloupe. Welcome, Betty. Could you put on your camera and say hello?
Hello, hello everyone.
Hi, Betty. Can't
Hey,
see you.
hey, Betty.
You can see me. This is Becky
Hi.
Fausta. Hi, hi everyone.
Hi. So Betty is the CEO of IPEOS, which stands for Internet Protocol, or Internet Protocol A Open Source. That's an open source. She's also the president of Guadeloupe Tech Incubator. She's a member of ICANN ALAC, that's the at-large community. She's also a member of Euro ALO and LAC ALO. Later on, all those acronyms stand for some serious internet governance institutions, guys. We just take things for granted, but if we didn't have people like Betty supporting internet governance, we wouldn't even be connected. So that's really a large topic and something that we're very grateful to have her on our board. And she also supports, she's a member of the ICANN Policy Working Group. So when we're talking about domains and anything to do with connectivity and internet, this policy group really develops new policies. She's also a MIT Hackathon mentor. She is the UEVS virus program mentor as well. And she is a board member of a number of different professional organizations in Guadeloupe. And one thing that's unique, you see, each person's got a unique thing. We've got policy, we have got internet governance. She is also a member of the board of Bike Lab Fab Lab. So if you don't know what a Fab Lab is, it's really where you look at 3D printing. It's almost like a modern mechatronic lab for manufacturing. And it's really a very unique infrastructure to have in an ecosystem where we're looking at modernizing our manufacturing. People who are, even in this group, who are existing agro processes and stuff, would find Fab Labs fantastically easy because it means you can create your own packaging. It's a whole bunch of creative things you could do. So welcome, Betty. And then my next, or should I say last speaker, is Mr. Nigel Farrell. Nigel, could you please do the honors and show your camera? Mr. Farrell in the house, all the way from St. Kitts and Nevis. Well, I'm in Nevis at the moment, and he's in St. Kitts. So, still some Nigel in the house. Okay,
he was, but I'm not seeing him now. Where is he?
We may have. Oh, he is. Okay. I will send him a message.
He was, but.
Well, as soon as he comes back on, I shall introduce him. Okay, so just so that we can, I have done introductions, but of course, when I introduce people, it's not the same thing as hearing from them. So, Ahmed, tell us a bit more about your role in AI. I think let's get into the meat of the matter, because we're going to look at the new trends, the new technologies, the new innovations that can really help us as small businesses propel, right? And this helps us in moving from physical to digital. So tell us a little bit about your entity and AI, a little bit about AI and how this can be applied to small businesses.
I guess everybody hears me, so good evening, everyone, and good evening to all the people, and thank you for introducing me, and thank you, Marcia, for giving me the opportunity to share my experience with you guys. So congratulations also for the work you're doing. To start with EI, I'm not an EI specialist. I'm an advocate of inclusion in EI because as we see in a world that a lot of things are depending on artificial intelligence, and then we see the related technologies with EI are beginning to shape important parts of the digital economy, impacting core areas and networked societies. But what we see also, it has a potential major impact on our lives, so shaping our collective future in both visible and hidden ways. The promise of AI-based technologies is enormous, and the benefits range from efficiency gains to unprecedented improvement in quality of life. But the reason why I started this is because the challenges and potential risks are equally actually designed. For example, we have considered uncertainty about the future of labor, of the emergence of new power structures beyond the control of existing governance and accountability frameworks. More specifically, because we see also racism through AI, we see that vulnerable people are not included. The unequal access to an impact of AI and related technologies on often marginalized populations, even in the Western, very modern countries like in the Netherlands, where we have 100%, almost 100% internet access, we see that the marginalized populations, including poor communities, women, youth, ethnic and migrant groups, people with disabilities, for example, and especially those at the crossroad of these marginalized groups contribute to the troubling risk of amplifying digital inequalities around the world. And that's why I started Inclusive Algorithm.
Thank you, Ahmed. And I mean, you really touch on a very important area. So like, as Ahmed said, it might not necessarily be the AI programmer or one who creates the algorithms, but what his role is to make sure it is inclusive. Because guess what? For those of you who don't know, when you are a coder and you're a programmer and you design a system, you design it for who you know, you design it for yourself. So if you are in a very diverse, society where you happen to be, say, Caucasian, and that is all you know, and the way you've been brought up is one-sided, it's very easy to codify this implicit bias into the system. So what happens? for someone that only uses, because what artificial intelligence does is uses reference points. So a practical example would be someone who has designed this artificial intelligence to look at people's faces and to monitor people on the street. And now this is used in the police force. So with CCTV, so they take the data from CCTV, screen through it, and then you're looking at patterns. Now, if a person has implicit bias, obviously they're going to codify certain patterns into their process of reviewing this data so that it might flag a certain set of people as being criminal when
Absolutely.
some of those characteristics are not necessarily criminal. So you have cases whereby some people of color would go towards CCTV and it doesn't even recognize them because the people who have coded it never even factored some of our unique features. So this is why his role is really important, and it's a key thing for us who are now trying to move from physical to digital. And maybe as we're evolving our business model, we see that you might end up processing so much data that you want, to hit a switch and get a report in 2 seconds.
Now
In order to do that, you might have to apply some of these technologies.
that's for in our case in the Netherlands for the moment is that we have two main objectives in here because you want to generate more network and knowledge in this field to better understand how artificial intelligence and algorithm and big data can be ethically developed for social benefit by involving the marginalized groups. So you have to have the discussion with them, we have big corporations like Google, like Facebook, Uber, and all are working on this field a lot. So it's very important to generate that network. At the same time, it's to project or to raise awareness among governments and the semi-government and all public services and industry, education institutions dealing with this issue. I mean, they are kind of stakeholders. And the last one, which is the most important one, and I see it in my environment, by the way, I was born and raised in Africa, Morocco, and I grew up here. I'm a son of an immigrant. So that's the reason why I'm setting this up, because from the inclusion perspective, it's very important to make everybody included in whether you're coding or you're offering. It's very important to be also part of that. So is to promote the debate, because a lot of people, when you tell them AI or you tell them machine learning, in my environment, nobody knows about that. You have to explain exactly what it is. So it's very important to promote that debate on public policies, best practices, and also to explain to the people you can be discriminated if you're not involved. So one of the things I'm going to do with the inclusive algorithm is we're going to implicate schools. We're going to promote the education in the early stage of young kids to go and code and to choose for IT solutions instead of going for just a lawyer or being a farmer. So it's also good to have that background too. So we're going to work with schools and with education system to promote artificial intelligence in an early age. We're going to work with families. So there are so many things we're going to do. I mean, they don't have to understand what the AI is, but we will bring that knowledge to the houses, to the schools, and to the communities.
Okay, thank you, Ahmed. So before we go on, I think Nigel has joined us. Nigel, can you please put on your camera and say hello? Mr. Farrell.
Yes, good morning. Sorry. Hello, hello.
Hi, Mr. Farrell. You're driving.
No,
Okay, so
Joys of technology.
the joys of
listen, no,
technology.
no, I'm not. I'm
So
not driving. I'm actually sitting in my car
you're
because
sitting in your car. Beautiful.
I
Move
have,
well.
yeah, because I have my staff currently managing a live stream for one of my clients, and then I'm remotely monitoring another system. So I'm trying to be very flexible right now. That's what.
Entrepreneur on the go. I love that. So let me just give you a little bit about Nigel. Nigel, he's the CEO of Caribbean Beacon Marketing Solutions and SKN Multi Marketing. So as you have heard, he has his hands on a number of different things that are based on leverages technology. I've known Nigel now for probably maybe about 5, 6 years, or maybe more than that even.
More than that.
So he's got more than that, yes. So we go back a long time. He's got a background in IT over 25 years. He's been dealing with 10 years in marketing, both digital marketing and of course our traditional offline marketing. He's also been in brand marketing for 5 years. And as you know, in terms of us even moving from physical to digital, we need to look trusted, and branding is a big part of that. How do we package ourselves to be trusted as well as that? And then he also has over 10 years experience in business consultation. So I want to welcome Nigel. Thank you for joining the conversation. So we just kicked off with just starting the convo, and I got Ahmed to talk a little bit about, the landscape, the digital economy. We're looking at different fourth revolution technologies that are impacting us as small businesses, and how we as small businesses have to move from physical to the digital era. And there are just so many things just bombarding us. I mean, fourth revolution technologies, what the hell is that? I'm sure some people are even wondering what it is, but not wanting to tell Telly, like, what you really talking about there, and AI and so on. So we started with the conversation of artificial intelligence. And I know not everyone is going to perhaps migrate towards even using artificial intelligence, but it's important for us to know it because it would displace us in many different things. So seeing that you joined us late, I'm going to pick on you. So you tell us, in terms of from your perspective in the digital economy, what technologies are you seeing that a small business can actually leverage? What are some of the solutions you're dealing with or toying with, and how can, from a very practical perspective, can they actually leverage this to kind of propel their business?
But it's funny because I'm glad you mentioned this whole bridging of AI, because I did a presentation maybe about just before COVID with the Department of Labor here, talking about how we can look at how technology impacts the workforce and in the next, say, 5 or 10 years. And one of the things in my presentation was about AI, and beginning to let people realize that the foundation of AI has already begun. As a matter of fact, it's been a part of our everyday life, but we don't really pay that much attention to it. I mean, for one to write an algorithm and code it, where it can actually mimic your search pattern. That's AI right there. For one to be able to go on to Amazon and shop for consistently for like a period of maybe 5 or 6 times, you find that the AI picks up your pattern and be able to make suggestions based on your search psychology. So we are, this is not new. It's how can we fit ourselves? How can we adapt? And for me, I say this to my clientele all the time. Facebook is creating one of the biggest pushes for IA out there, because they're doing bots, they're doing algorithms that allows you to do latitude and longitude in terms of your ads. They're doing pixelated imagery and how that relates to an interest. So there are so many different aspects of this digital technology being integrated with IA that we see it and we engage it, but we don't realize what it is. And for me, I am constantly looking at ways to edge out, in the sense that I'm trying to find the solutions that are not complicated but efficient, and especially with digital marketing, because the changes are constantly there. The movement. I am researching and I'm looking at a new system that I'm using for restaurants, and how efficient I can move from physical orders to now digital orders, and make them move through a process that eliminates 3 and 4 steps. I'm looking at ways in which individuals can now integrate with platforms and make efficient purchases through e-commerce solutions. So those are just some of the things I have been looking at, and I'm doing all that with my eye on AI and integrating it wherever I can.
Okay, thank you for that. So just to simplify for our audience, because we know we have a very broad audience, you have people who are simply just perhaps producing candles, we have creators, we have agro-processors, we have other green entrepreneurs. So what I'm hearing you say is AI, that technology, AI, can be applied to say something as simple as digital marketing. And it is for people to be aware of what that technology is and what it can do and how it can apply to them. But what you're saying, I'm hearing, is there are different solutions out there that can simplify their use in it. And in your case, when you're talking about digital marketing, you gave the example about recommendations, right? It's so valuable because to create value, at the end of the day, you're in business to create value for your customer. And if you don't have insights on your customer, then it's hard for you to deliver a service. And more, as a small business, especially when you're moving digital, one of the main things you're going to realize is how to build the focus of customer value is 100% fundamental.
That is
You
correct.
must have a 360-degree view of your customer.
That is correct.
You must know their habits, their movements, everything, so that you can deliver and respond to them. So this is not like I'm going to build it and I hope people come. No, this is like you need to be very proactive in engaging your customer. So perhaps as we move along, we'll come down to some very simple solutions that people can use. I mean, something like that, even before you add the complicated AI. Because at the end of the day, one thing you have to know is these technologies end up having to lay in the background. We techies love new tech. So we go on and on and on, and people get lost in all these acronyms, and people just look at us like we're crazy people. But eventually, what tends to happen where everybody else starts adopting is when that technology solution moves into the background, and all it is you actually have something that works and something that gets what you're looking for. So it is you want to get a profile of your customer, you get that. Go ahead, Nigel.
No, and I tell you, I'm gonna use the simplest format possible. Um, I do a lot of work with the Ministry of Education locally, and due to COVID-19, as you know, we are minimizing as much human interaction as possible to minimize spread and etc. etc. So in a meeting, they're talking about this upcoming activity and talking about people registering and all this kind of stuff. And I'm saying, wait a minute, what are we doing here? We're trying to create a solution, but at the same time, we are minimizing our approach to this solution. I mean, we need to explore every possibility. So I said, why don't we do an e-form that has an analytics built in so that we can know how many males, how many females, what age group, and that kind of stuff. And then just send that out to people, organization groups, you name it, whoever. Well, I mean, they thought I was like Einstein, because it turned out to work so much better that for every event they've done thereafter, it's been a success. I mean, 300, 400, 500 people registering, and we have all that data now to be able to help as part of the process of additional policies and solutions that can come out. So a lot of times it's not this high-end technology that's going to be like over the top of your head. You'll be like, oh my gosh, what did he just do? I can't see that click and that button and whatever. But it's simple stuff that people can engage with. You can show them 1-2 steps, but the system itself is designed to do most of the work for you.
Sorry, stick a pin. I'm coming back to you. I'm going to open it up to Betty. So Betty, so we're talking about basically the use of data. We're in an era where we have to use data for everything. And while we're hearing the benefits of AI, we also looked at other issues in terms of inclusivity, et cetera, of AI. There are other concerns with all this data. I mean, a lot of us are on Facebook and we share our information all the time. And without us knowing that certain people's business model relies on our data to make money because they're selling us pretty much. Everything you share is valuable. So just as I said, you need to know everything about your customer. The same way Facebook knows everything about you, and all that information you share can be sold. So the issue of data protection from a policy standpoint is quite important. How do we deal with data protection? And maybe for us in the region, what kind of simpler policies and mechanisms can we actually learn from or create in order to make it easier for us to do business? Because at the same time, we still have to participate in this digital economy, but we still have to protect ourselves. Can you weigh in, Betty? And I know you have to leave very shortly. Unmute your mic, Betty. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone. I think the Caribbean region can learn about GDPR. It's a law about data protection. We contribute. You have many countries in European contribute for data protection. That's starting with citizen they want to take back the control of their data. But the most part for our region, we are a small region, but we have a lot of creativity. We create soca, zouk, and many music that, reggae in Jamaica. And our creativity, our content is really valuable. So before the internet, we have some distribution workflow to distribute and to have a money back as creator. But with the era of data, we obviously we are not free. We depend on a big company in United States like Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple and Microsoft. And this company, they want to put us in a box, control our content, and make money on our content. So if we couldn't imagine the 10 next year if we don't take back the control of our data. And that's starting with some regulation, with some policy about that. Control regulation, maybe, but the citizen, the entrepreneur, have to contribute closer with the government to say, hey, man, I have my content I produce. I want to have money back, a percentage or something about what I put on. When I decide to share some video or some content on Facebook, okay, this is clear. Everything I put on Facebook, I cannot control it, I cannot monetize it if I don't respect Facebook rules. So we have to improve to improve the system with some regulation, but with more commitment as an entrepreneur to make sure that we can have money back about this business. So we couldn't say, okay, it's easier to use Google Drive, it's easier to use Facebook to share, or to use YouTube to share, because they make it, this is globalized. They globalize the tools to make it easy for everyone. So it's easy for many people to use it. But if we use it, we have to to keep it in our mind that we have to find a way to monetize. So there is many levels for the regulation and to change that. There is, as individual, to change our practice of how we share the data. Our company, we have many duty. We have to respect the personal data of our customer, of the human resource, and many people we have relation with them. And as government, we have to protect all the population, how the economy. So there is the three main level we can impact and change that. So I think we are lucky. We are in a territory with many regulation. We have Dutch Caribbean, English Caribbean, French Caribbean. Some territories have already some rules can impact that. Other they talk about that, they discuss about that, but it's not really clear. This is a moment maybe we can make a task force for entrepreneur to be close for the entrepreneur to change that.
Thank you very much, Betty. And I like how you bring in the whole concept of something abstract like data management, data privacy, and policy, and the whole issue of monetization, because we're in business. It's about business model. And one of the things that I took away from your presentation is that literally every business creates value, has that, should I say, intellectual property component that actually generates some sort of value. And that is very critical. So it means that that monetization of data is critical. Other people are monetizing your data, so why can't you? And that brings me to the whole, should I say, there are actually new opportunities and new business models that allow you to directly sell your data or monetize your data directly, as opposed to having someone else do it. So you give permission, you're either giving permission to someone else to use your data, you determine how they're using your data, and you also determine if you're going to get some returns on your data. So here is another, should I say, opportunity that's creating some value that you never really knew you had. So thank you very much, Betty. I know you have to go.
Yeah,
and
sure. Thank you.
joining us.
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
sure there'll be a future another event where we'll be able to get Betty on here, because she is packed with knowledge. She's packed with a lot of information, and it's always great for us to connect with our French neighbors, which we hardly ever do because of the language, you know. So in this space, we're global, and it doesn't really matter where you are. So thank you for joining us, Betty.
Au
I
revoir.
will let you go.
See you soon.
So, and thank you for setting us on a path of monetization. Thank you. So now moving on to, yes, Lisa, I'll come back to you. Hey, Lisa, how are you doing? How's Grenada? So I'll come back to you, Lisa. Let me move on to both Nigel and Ahmed about certain questions. So Betty touched on the whole issue of monetization, and also looking at different models, which is really key. So what influence would you say in terms of moving from physical to digital, do we have to look at business model innovation? I guess, Ahmed, you could weigh in. Nigel, you can come after that.
Yeah, Ahmed, you go first.
Ahmed, you're on mute. On mute. Thank you.
I think there are a lot of with this COVID, we've seen how important to change your style, to change your strategy, and we see that for example, 10 years ago, small businesses had a little chance competing with the big players. They simply did not have financial resources and time. The time value was too long. Today, technology is often scalable and available and customized subscription plans everywhere. So it's no longer the executive right of the great. So startups and small businesses also have the same weapon at the moment. as the new innovative companies have a huge advantage, and they don't have the legacy that many large companies grapple with. Outdated technology, conservative workflows, complex business processes. So new and innovative companies start from a different attitude. That's startups actually, and to deal with the and predictably environment. What we're dealing with at the moment with COVID. So we don't know what's going on. We don't know how the pandemic, how we're gonna remain. So they are adaptive to the situation. So I think that's one of the things that might be also encouraging for anybody, governments or for banks or investors to pump in a lot of energy on startups who are really willing to change to change their business models, because there are so many ways to do that. So and also to look at different sectors who are really attractive to do something in that. And as we see agriculture, for example, was I read somewhere in a research that by 2020, around 75 million Internet of Things devices will be agriculture based. Technologically advanced farmers will be able to place the Internet of Technology devices in soil to track the acidity levels, temperature, rate of crop growth in order to harvest successfully. So this is one of the examples. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nigel.
So
In terms of business model innovation.
well, I think Ahmed touched on it, and from my standpoint, I look at how what has happened with my particular business to begin with, went from primarily focusing on the digital aspects using current brands to creating a brand for my brand, if that makes sense. And I think based on what we have already discussed already, is when we're looking at innovation, we need to be able to challenge ourselves to be able to step out and realize that the solutions has been around for the last 5 years. It's just time for them to come forth. I have built, close to 6 or 7 solutions in the last 6 months that are completely online based, that I should have already been there before, but took a longer time for the market and the business owners who are a part of these particular brands to come on board. But COVID has said, technology is ready for us, and this is how we use it. Whether we are using tablets in the field to do mapping for census, or whether we are and allowing ourselves to be tracked via GPS, or whether we are using geofencing to target ads or promotion in a particular concentrated area, like a Miami boat show. Whatever it is that we are doing, whatever that innovation ends up being, technology has to be a part of it, and so much so that it allows us to work with it. Not that it's going ahead of us and we're still trying to catch up, or not that it's too hard and complicated to understand, but easy enough where we can get it, and onboarding and engaging our customers becomes a lot easier. So I'm saying, let's not just say we want to innovate, but that innovation has to create a solution based on what we've already analyzed in the market. Because there's a lot of solutions that are needed right now, but based on what COVID has created. I mean, right down to kiosks that you can put at the airport that can scan your temperature, that can download data for your travel, your travel history, that can also be able to provide you with an app that can track you when you're out and about, to determine whether you're a positive patient or negative patient. These are the kind of things that become a part of that innovation. And yes, government has to support that, whether they're doing incubators or whether they're doing or any other small business program, but not so much to run it, but to be able to provide some guidance and let those of us who are in the industry to be able to put forth our expertise to be able to make it happen.
Oh,
Thank you, Nigel. So, so
I,
take away from this. Yeah, go ahead, Ahmed, real quick,
yeah,
because we're starting to run out of time.
oh, I'm sorry. We all
Unfortunately, but go ahead.
Oh, okay, okay. We all know that's very important to innovate. I mean, everybody can see that. Everybody, I mean, with COVID, it's even more important. But the most important thing also is when we talk about innovation and we don't grab the community with us and the youngsters with smart ideas to develop their ideas and to stimulate them to do that, because we know there are a lot of accelerators, incubators all over the world. I was doing something in Africa and I was asking people, come up with ideas. And it's very difficult to get that from communities. And I get the investors saying, well, do you have anything innovative? And it's very hard to match those needs with, with financing, because financing is there. But it's very important to raise a mentality of entrepreneurship in our community. Wherever
There you
you
go.
are, it doesn't matter if you are in the bush in Africa or you're in Barbados or you're in China, that mindset is something that we have to develop. If we're able to do that, we will be the leaders of innovation in the next 50, 10 or 20 years. That's the mindset that we have to realize. So we have to create also. So it's important to create a mindset or entrepreneurial mindset in the communities. It doesn't matter where you are. An entrepreneur is an entrepreneur. And we have the technologies, we have the phones, we have everything around us. And if you don't have it, build that international connection. I mean, I can't provide you with that. I mean, I just one link. I gotta say, well, the ladies that inspired me today, if you need connections with incubation programs or with the investors, with the networks, yeah, that's what we are.
So I'm just seeing in the chat some really active discussions and leading into that mindset of innovation. And are we a space for us to innovate? Financial innovation. So I could speak a little bit about that. So someone asked the question, why is it so hard for the banks and financial institutions to provide payments? First things first, a bank's business is not about payments. It has never ever been. That's why you have Visa, MasterCard. They rely on payment service providers. So the opportunity for payments has always been provided by external service provider. That's a fact.
That's correct.
We
That's
haven't
correct.
had the opportunity to innovate in that space. And someone says, oh, what about funding? So yes, we know in the Eastern Caribbean, they're right now currently piloting the Eastern Caribbean digital currency. And also in the Bahamas, they have done that. I know in the next 2-3 years, literally all the central banks would have moved to issuing a digital currency. Not only does it cut down their costs, it's more efficient, but it's better, it's easier for them to track where the money flows and reduces all this fraud and so on. And right now, when everybody else is using digital currencies to try and get on with it, they have to catch up and remain relevant. Because if they don't remain relevant, that's it. We will all be using Bitcoin and everybody create their own digital currency and cut out the banks. So they're trying to keep up the pace with innovation. So for saying that they're a little behind, I would say at least in the Eastern Caribbean, there has been some kind of vision and foresight to move forward. That being said, there are many different ways for you to do payments. Granted, it's not easy, and sometimes because we haven't had a proper regulatory environment to support it, it has kept us back, but it doesn't mean you can't accept payments today. You can
Exactly.
always use a Shopify account or whatever it is. These days, you're a global business. So why can't you incorporate a business in the US? It takes 5 minutes, probably costs $50, and you do that. Of course, you have to get the knowledge of how do you deal with taxes and so on, but nothing stops you. So we're not thinking big, we're not thinking global. You know, I've registered a company in the UK, literally took 10 minutes to do so. Another one in the US, another 10 minutes. With that, I was able to get an account. They have all sorts of what you call these digital banks or digital challenger banks that set up these things, and voila, I'm accepting payments. So I mean, just because it is in your local ecosystem, it doesn't mean you can't. There are possibilities there. And also there are other people who can also enter into the space. And so what we're seeing, and I will kind of head into, the ending right here because I see our timing is very limited, is the future of finance. Right now, we've had many different ways of digitalization, and now the wave is hitting on finance. And we've heard about fintech, we've heard about it driving. I can tell you what the future of finance is. The future of finance currently is going to be embedded finance. So the same way you need your small business, you couldn't care less about the payments, you couldn't care less all the tech and all this thing we're talking about AI. But what you do want is an application to put it into your business model. So what we see is it's already happening with payments because you have a platform to accept payments, you have to put it into your thing to accept payments. Very soon you'll be able to incorporate wealth management as a service. You can become an insurance person. At the end of the day, you have to move from being an SME to what we call a startup, one that is focused on high growth, high digital scale. But in order to do so, you have to innovate your business models. And with that being said, start thinking about how do you create value as you move from digital to physical. Don't really depend too much on the tech just yet. Depend on the outcomes. What do your customers want and how can you deliver that in a most innovative way?
Okay.
So Ahmed, 2 seconds, takeaway, give a
We
2 second takeaway. What do you give advice? And Nigel, and then we'll wrap.
Yeah, thank you for those 2 seconds. We are in COVID at the moment, and we have a lot of people suffering from COVID, startups or not startups. So it's very important to use this time that you have to rebuild your brand. It's very important to connect with the others. It's very important to trust your team you're working with, because everybody is in the same boat actually, and adapt to evolve. That's a very important one, to adapt, to evolve, because you might stuck into your own environment at the moment and you think, well, I'm not going to make it. So it's very important to adapt to the new situations and then maybe think about new solutions. So the one example I want to give you about the investors, for example, in Africa, there are some startups in Africa, even in villages, they come up with idea to do this SMS messaging, sending money through the SMS message. So investors, they like the idea because it was very easy to implement globally. And that's also something I want to give you, is to have this vision to think globally, that your concept might be used everywhere in the world because you're using this innovation in your solution. That was it.
Thank you, Nigel. Really quick takeaway, give advice.
Yeah.
What would you give advice to an SME?
I'm going right where Ahmed left off, that networking and that collaboration. I have had so much success during COVID because I've recognized areas within my model that I could collaborate or partner with someone locally, internationally, doesn't matter, and has allowed me to be able to leverage and even more increase my revenue, because I don't have to be the one to do it all the time. I might not have the resources, the technology, but if someone does, entrepreneur like myself, and I believe in that, and I think we don't do that enough in the region, and I want to encourage regionally, locally, internationally, find ways to connect with someone that together you can leverage time and resources. Thank you.
Great. Telly.
All right, with that, I want to say thank you. I hear some people complaining why they have to go to the UK or wherever. Hey, as we said, St. Nevis has led the way for blockchain. We actually have a legislation for digital assets. So if you don't want to go to the US, incorporate in St. Nevis. You have two entities within one jurisdiction. You have maybe about 5 or 6 type of incorporation models. Feel free to incorporate and operate your business It's all about looking for solutions, and we have it in our region. And if you don't have it in the region, think scale. Thank you.
Okay.